All right, you guys ready?
Let me turn this. Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Hi, everybody. This is Mike Novogratz on a special edition of Next with Novo with one of my favorite artists, Urs Fischer. This is pretty exciting. It came up quick, partly because Urs has got an NFT project that's going to kind of blast onto the space really soon. But before I even get to NFTs, Urs, first, welcome. And I want to, I started this podcast because I thought I had this unique privilege of meeting so many interesting people, and I wanted to kind of share those experiences with my audience. And so let's start about who you are, born in Switzerland, and why you became an artist, how you became an artist. I just want to give people a little context of who you are.
Okay, so I was born a longer time ago in Switzerland, and Switzerland is a strange place. Things are very orderly, So if you are a kid there and you like to create a little mess here and there, you got to find a way to do it. And I think that's what I still think art making is, So you rearrange the universe a little bit in an order that you like to see it in. So you have a sense of control. So I started when I don't know when I really became an artist, or if I still believe in that word as that you are one thing, It's just it's more a way of thinking and a way of interacting with the world. I probably started when I was 14, 15 to find, a kind of an interest in many fields, like first photography and then, building things, doing things, just interacting basically. And that led me down a path, encountering my first laptop that I bought when I was 17. It was like, I think in 92, some Apple laptop that was very clunky and, and saved a lot of money to get that. And then there were the text programs on there and, no drawing programs. But because I was not really a writer, I started to use all these frames and the letters to kind of make drawings, as I would do when I find a pen or whatever I do. It's basically the same kind of interacting. So, and from then on, I just, went out in the world, met people and do things,
Well, it's interesting of all the artists. Well, I've looked at lots of different art, and there are very few that work in as many different mediums as you do, from giant clay sculptures to digital stuff. You were in digital art way before a lot of established artists were, right? There are not that many Gagosian, stable artists that were doing digital stuff. Partly because easy to counterfeit. How do you prove provenance? Lots of different reasons, and so it's intuitive to me why you're moving into the NFT space earlier. But talk before you get there a little bit about how you make everything your canvas or your materials.
Well, it's I believe most ideas you have, or most urges to do something, you find a way. You find how to overcome obstacles to achieve something. So that's where the digital parts came in early for me, in a way as just a tool. Like, this thing can do something I cannot do otherwise. I don't see any different, or I never realize it's different in a way than any other material or any other medium you kind of, that's probably the correct word, that you engage in. So you can just you can just use it. And what happened in a lot of art, in the classic or contemporary art, or whatever, however we frame that, is people use computers at some point, and then they eventually print that thing out, or like make it a tangible thing, which is not what it was meant to be. And sometimes that works. Like, let's say, I did a lot of sculptures where at first I did everything by hand, and then I about 20 years ago, or a little less, we started to look into what's possible to scale things up rather than do it by hand. And so we scan things, and And then, what can you do with that? And then we have to mill it and bring it back into the real world, which makes sense for some projects, but other projects, they actually live as a digital format. And what's interesting to me is that we are in a time, mainly after spending, pretty much everybody spend a year on front of their computer or whatever tablet, and starting to communicate on a screen. And that's also the time where people over sudden understand that digital medium can be validated, and that came to a broader understanding that some people were thinking about this for many years now. I don't know how many years, but like, and this coincides makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, it's interesting. So I got involved first in Bitcoin in 2012, 2013, and I remember thinking this. What was unique about it was the first digital signature you couldn't counterfeit. And quickly I started thinking, well, at one point people will create art because you can put it on the blockchain and it can't get copied. And it didn't really happen. I was talking about it in 2013 and 14, and all of a sudden this year, because of COVID, because everyone was stuck in their house, we kind of catapulted into the metaverse. And now we all live a little bit in the metaverse. This is not complete metaverse Zoom, but more and more. And when I talk to young people, 23, 24, 25, they think we're going to live in the metaverse, not just visit it as an amusement park. And so what's interesting is you're not 25. You're not as old as me, but you're certainly not Gen Z or millennial. But you're one of the first guys that are seeing this to say, hey, I'm going to create art that lives in this metaverse. Yeah, you can maybe have a screen that the NFT can be on display at your house, but a lot of it's meant to stay in this digital format and maybe live in a digital world with a digital art, museum, or a digital library in your house, or a man cave. So I guess it feels natural for you, much more so than most artists.
Yeah, I think you saw there are different people try to figure out what's possible within this new this new framework, and there is different ways to go about it, and it definitely brings in a whole new set of people that can just work from home with a computer or and can reach out, and I think that part is super interesting, that it opens up everything that has been predicated. I think in some way, the way I go about it is not that different than I go about it in anything else I do. Let's say I would make a sculpture out of bronze, very traditional sculpture. I would use the medium and I would do it in a way that it would last. So it would need to withstand environmental things like frost, sun, rain, pollution. And if I do it right, this thing will exist for a long time, so it doesn't fall apart. Now, if you think of the same thing as in a digital medium, how do you ensure that, because there are no physical properties attached to the work, how do you ensure you do the same thing? So you really got to think about what your data is and how that could be displayed, how you don't exclude things we don't even have a clue about what they will be. I remember, I'm sure you know what a telex was.
Yeah.
I remember I was a little kid, and I was brought, my parents, some friend of theirs was there, investment person, and they had a big machine in a room, giant machine, like bigger than a bathtub. And this machine transmitted messages from New York, and it took 50 minutes later, they got the message, and it was like just a little typewriter, basically, that's encased in a huge thing. And it just had like 5 sentences, and it was and these messages came in. And when you think that was a very small industry and not much use for that. And I always keep that in my mind, what I can do now, what my kids do now, and how we share information, and how cumbersome that thing was. And if you think now that everybody uses this technology, you need to think about all kind of possibilities of how worlds will overlap or separate or coexist and to kind of ensure that your work can survive in that environment. So it's not the frost, it's not the rain, it's not the snow, it's like the changes in technology. And if you really like take it serious and you not just put something out now, I mean, that comes from my experience about repairing a lot of works when I was a kid. I just glued some stuff together and 2 years later it falls apart and it comes back to my studio. I'm like, I have to fix that again. I don't want to fix that again. That's boring, you know? So it's kind of the same thing for me. Like, we need to apply that, and sure, every data will take on its own form of patina. It will not like peel off like old paint on a house. It will be resolution, it will be motion, it will be, I don't know what it will be, but it will also feel dated, and all of that you can kind of try to encompass like or like into the decisions you make, you know.
So it's interesting, you know, so far what's worked in the NFT space are digitally native artists that were well known, that are being embraced by I'd call it the crypto community, right? People that have made their money in Bitcoin and Ethereum and other coins, and it's kind of their revolution. And we haven't had, you know, no traditional art buyer was bidding $69 million for the Beeple.
Yeah.
Those are two crypto kids. We know them. They're a great guy, but they were bidding for, you know, with crypto money. Now, money's fungible, right? It's the same. It was $69 million worth of Ethereum, which is now even worth more. And so I have to say, you're really courageous, being really the first A-lister, you know, world-class A-lister. I've been trying to buy one of your sculptures, but it's too expensive. Yeah. And so how did you not even think this is a risk? Because a lot of artists I've spoken to said, hey, I want to do this, but I'm a little worried that how am I going to be perceived? And maybe I should just wait. And so I'm giving you lots of credits. If I had a hat and hair, I'd take it off and salute you for being, you know, intrepid and not being scared. Talk a little bit about that. Or is it?
I don't feel that way. I do feel that the environment I work with, the support system I had as an artist in, you know, through galleries, museums, whatever, all this stuff over the last 2 decades or more, and that I don't feel a lot of love from them for doing what I'm doing now.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Because I think they don't, you know, some people might just not have spent the time to think it through and to understand all the possibilities and that come with that, and the necessities also that we have to find this these amazing solutions that have been, you know, found to through the blockchain. Like there are amazing solutions that we didn't have before. Like, let's say I made some conceptual works that I have then a manual that's written on a piece of paper, and that's what we sell, and then they can find that piece of paper. I mean, you know, and all these can be resolved. And I think for some artists, I was actually personally a little bit pissed off at how some artists try to, like, come from my neck of the woods, try to engage in the NFT world, because I think they didn't understand what the possibility is. So it just seemed a little opportunity, and I think that's kind of, it's a shame, because I think what will be left of any time is always what is solid, and the other things will wash away. And I think the traditional art world, it doesn't matter. They were long due for an overhaul, like the music industry and whatever, all of it, you know.
No,
I think
it's
it's great.
I do too. Listen, when we started talking about Bitcoin 2013, I was a traditional finance guy and everyone thought I was crazy. They were nice to me, but they all thought I was crazy. And, you know, there was a lot of pushback, and there was a lot of fear. And with Bitcoin, it's finally gaining acceptance. With the blockchain and finance, it's finally getting acceptance. I'm optimistic that in the creative side, right? In art and in collectibles and music, it's going to happen faster. It's going to happen faster because we already saw what happened with Bitcoin. It's going to happen faster because there's forums like Clubhouse and Discord and these big forums of education. One of the reasons I'm doing this podcast, and so I do think you're gonna be proven smart, in 2 years, not 10 years. So let's talk about your project. It's exciting. The first NFT is auctioned on Fair Warning, right? This week.
Yeah,
so maybe you
Fair
can
Warning is
give the audience.
Excuse me to interrupt.
Give the audience give the audience kind of a comprehensive view of what this project is.
This project is goes back a longer time. It's just a manifestation of I thought about a lot as a teenager how it started then that I saw, let's say you have one object and you have something else, and when I see the glasses, everybody sees something else. So I see, sure, glasses, but I also might think of my dad that wore it, or I might think of my grandmother or whatever, like you associate different stuff with everything you encounter. And so I started to think about the two things exist basically within one thing, or the existence of one object, the physical space it takes up in the tangible world is also, it's not one thing, it's also something else, and it's something else for everybody, because we always bring our story to everything. We are basically story people, more so than anything else. We see a story in everything, and that's yeah. So then I started by hand to carve things and try to squish them together, and to have this, and that looked very clumsy, because then I was like, how would I do this if something intersects, like whatever, and you had to carve it out and paint it and spackle it, and it was kind of clumsy. And then I started to work with my first scan data from three-dimensional stuff that we scan from real life things, and because there are no physical properties in a three-dimensional object, when it's digitized, it was automatic that these things just intersect. Yeah, that's what it is. They just fit together because there is nothing there. It's all a story, and so that opened some paths for me. And then I made a few sculptures. Maybe you saw that big bear with that's now in the Novo airport. So that was two things intersecting, and for that I used, that's already based on data that we worked on and so on, and then we kind of milled the whole thing and made it real. But it never, this idea never left me, and that I could add motion, because when we move things, there is motion. So that's one segment of what this project is. It's all objects that can intersect. That's one segment. Another segment is the metamorphosis. So we scan everything in my studio. We scan it, we color map it, and I select all type of different objects. And we are very strange people, because we have a lot of artifacts. It almost seems the more things get extinct in nature and in real life, the more we invent new things. It almost goes like at the same time. And if I think how few things I touch in my life that are actually nature, that are not either cultured, made, or whatever. So my interactions are very man-made, and objects are kind of a shadow of our existence, or like, in terms of like anthropology looks at it this way. We have all these things. My two kids, I don't know where they get it. Every day they bring little things in the house. I don't know where they come from. It's a mystery to me. But it just fills up, and I have to clean it out. It fills up. So in some way, I'm fascinated by all these objects around. So by scanning it, instead of rebuilding it, so I don't rebuild these objects. I actually scan them, and I make the metamorphosis into a digital form. That is not unlike painting. Let's say a painting is something that teaches me how somebody else sees the world, and that is expressed through a medium of paint and the brush and whatnot. And so when I see a painting, it helps me sometimes see something in the real world. I'm like, ah, again, that reminds me of that artist, and somehow you see this thing. So that's the same what happens by digitizing an object. You kind of make it, you can actually see it because it's disconnected from its context. And so in the first part of this work, we have the whole project involves 1,000 things, and they are from everyday things to more obscure things to industrial components, just stuff. They involve cultured things like vegetables and whatnot, everything that has been engineered and cultured in any possible way. So I tried to find as broad a picture as possible to tell a story. There's older stuff, there's brand new stuff. There are juxtapositions of two elements that come together. In each of the whole thing is there are 501 parts to this artwork or this collection of artworks.
So each piece has it's the egg and the big lighter, and then it's something and something.
It's a pairing, exactly. So these pairings, I made a render with motion of each of these pairings, but logically we put in all the raw material to create any other form or any other form of how this could manifest itself. So we share what I made, and we share the two objects and a set of rules of how somebody can reinterpret that. So that leaves it open. It's not one or the other. And that is made with on the set of rules. So that is, you can use it. I strongly believe the two worlds will unite. The metaverse and the real world will become one. That's what I think.
We have that debate often here.
And just, that's maybe a very personalized view. I just imagine some of these sculptures in 20 years, you open your fridge and you can have that egg next to your eggs because you want to put it there, and it moves, and you go somewhere and you can have it somewhere in your real world, or you can make it very big, put it in your garden, and you can render it and change the motion, and you can have it in a light that goes with the light of your sunset in your garden. There is so many ways of how that could be seen.
Well, what's so unique about an NFT and its conceptual view is I always thought I could buy it out on a gallery, and I could pull it off the gallery and put it on my phone, and I could go home and I could play it here, and I could take it with me like it's my friend, and it could exist where I want it to exist, but it can't exist anywhere else, which is so unique, which gives it its value, right? If I'm taking it from the screen and it's a one of one, it's no longer on the screen, it's on my phone. And I'm taking it to my phone and putting it in my fridge, it's no longer on my phone, it's in the fridge, and so it really becomes your friend in some ways.
But it can be in both places. If you think about traditional art, most of it is in storage in crates, and people actually just look at it on their phone. They say, "Oh, this is a painting I have," and and
I've been fighting with big collectors about that. I was like, hey, you got to display them somewhere, public spaces. I don't know. It drives me crazy that some of the great art. I was literally with the museum director last night, and she was like, "Yeah, we display about 3% of our art," and I was like,
Yeah, if you think about it, I think the MoMA in New York has 500,000 artworks in their collection. If you think of the island of Manhattan, it's a little over 2 million people. Basically, 1 in 4 people could have a piece from the MoMA in their home. It's
pretty cool.
Pretty nutty, no?
Yeah, it is nutty. All right, so we're auctioning our first piece this weekend, and then the next 499. How does that play? One a day, one a week?
I think we figure it out. It's it's all new to me, and I really don't. I didn't think that much about the distribution model. I was very much immersed in the making of these things, So I think what's happening now, I think first we start working with fair warning. The the one auction of the first one, and then I believe there is a set of 50 that gets released by Maker's Place over whatever time frame they decide is. I think that's up to them, if I'm correct. And then we will feel it out. Also, I just don't know. And
I think
there is also the idea to bring some into a traditional gallery to also see how that works. You know, just feel it out.
It's a great attitude because we're so early. Like I was saying earlier, there's lots of companies working on how we should display NFTs. Right now, you can't go to Samsung and buy a great NFT display. I've seen some. My daughter sent me a picture in LA. This Korean company has made these giant screens you can display your NFTs on. There are not that many places where I can say, hey, Urs, meet me in the metaverse at my man cave. And we'll go into my man cave and all my, art's on the wall and we can have a coffee. But I've seen the prototypes, those are all coming. And so I think in 1, 2, 3 years, the possibility of how we interact with our digital art, our digital collectibles, our digital music is going to be very, very different than it is today. And so going slow makes a whole lot of sense to me. And I think it's interesting. I said before, you were brave. A lot of people I know that are artists are saying, I'm going to wait and wait and wait. And so I give you a lot of credit for just plunging in and saying, hey, trusting myself and trusting my art. Do you think you found this new medium and it's exciting to you? Right now, are you also doing other stuff, or is this where your focus is?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know yet. I work on whatever comes in my path. That's what I work on. That's what I always did. So I couldn't really answer that. Right now, I have some projects that are more traditional, and I have some that are more digital, and there are some things I don't know how to solve. There's a lot of questions of digital nature I try to resolve. I ventured out into robotics for a while. That was disastrous because we started to build industrial prototypes, but we had no idea what we do. And then these are free roaming robots, and you just kind of gotta make a gut decision if you want to have these objects and can go up to 30 miles released around people. Is there a glitch? What will happen? So if there's liabilities, you kind of got to say, I take the gamble, I take the risk. So I did that, but there are a lot of things I just would need to get much smarter about how they could resolve. The way I understand it, I don't particularly like the idea of an art world. I like to share, and I like people that share, and that is definitely really enticing in this situation, is that there are no gatekeepers.
Yeah, no. So talk about
that gives so much more room to communicate. I did pieces like I don't know if you ever saw. I did pieces where I had like thousands of people participating in something that worked with clay. So we just say we give a simple framework. I say we use this clay, and everybody does whatever they want, and that left like a crazy landscape of people's ideas, and some were very ambitious and they made big things and came back every day, and you do that over 5-6 weeks with maybe 2,000-3,000 people, and they all leave their mark in a giant space. And what you're left with is like the nuttiness of everything. And so that is also not really a traditional artwork in its sense. It is, you could say, it has a certain rigor of how the framework is set up, but it's really about communication and about having fun rather than like an object that is done in a masterly way.
No, I think community involvement is one of the big openings that the digital NFT space gives. We've already seen some projects where people can buy squares of a painting, and you might only get 11 squares of the painting bill, and then that becomes the painting, or people can participate. Uh, it will be really interesting to see how this medium changes the engagement around community in art. I was at my house, and we had a bunch of friends come over. We didn't know them actually for a party. We needed people to make the party more fun, and so we actually brought in party people that were friends of friends. And the next morning, everyone was hungover, and this girl with crazy hair started doodling, and then she said, "Now you doodle," and gave me the sketch, and it went around the whole table, 12 of us. And by the end, it was a really cool piece of art. And so it was the first time I clicked in this idea that you're saying. Uh, so is that part? I mean, that could be part of your plan,
Well, there is
to engage.
it's even part of this chaos series is to have there's different ways of how you can interpret it. You can always fall back on what I put together, but there is, as I said earlier, you can interpret it any way you want. There is a set of guidelines, and then I will bring in different people now already as we release them to all from all kind of walks of life to interpret my work already as we release them. So the whole thing is something that is not like set. I want to continuously have fun with it and just let it move, as they get released. And that goes all the way till there is the capstone piece in a way of the 501, where I where all the 1,000 objects detangle from their individual pairing, and they will just float around like a madness, a madness of mankind,
Awesome. Did your kids get any credit for some of the objects?
No, but my daughter recently, she looked at oh yeah, no, I take some of their objects, but I showed one of these renderings to my younger daughter, and a day later she took a piece of a bread roll, and she stuck a marker right through it. So she said, "I can do that too." It was kind of very funny.
Well, listen, this has been awesome. I can't wait for your auction. Fair warning to everyone on my audience: I'm going to be bidding because I think it'd be very cool to at least participate in Urs's first digital auction. I think it's monumental for the NFT space. I won't stress, what an awesome artist you are to make you blush. But I was talking to one of my friends, Scott Lowen, right beforehand. He was like, "Oh my God, he's my favorite." Just the stuff that you've done, the conceptual stuff you've done over the last 15 years is pretty groundbreaking. And so to have you as part of the NFT world, I think every NFT collector, from whale shark to who knows, is going to be at least looking at this with keen eyes. And so, guys, stay tuned. And Urs, thanks a ton. Really appreciate you coming on, and we'll be in touch. I still
Thanks
want a giant clay. I want a giant clay sculpture. I have a sculpture park I'm building, and there's room for an Urs Fischer monumental clay sculpture.
Well, so let me know.
I'm coming at you. Okay. Good stuff, guys. Thanks a lot. This has been Next with Novo. I got it. All right, Urs. Listen, you sell your stuff in the non-digital world or the non-NFT world for millions at times. Now you're going into a whole new world. How do you have any sense of how this is going to get priced? Do you care how price points will be?
Doesn't matter. I mean, we start at $1,000 and see. It doesn't matter. I mean, it will just be what it is. That I like this because it doesn't have that gatekeeping and the prizes being made by very few people. It is a public arena, and I actually prefer that.
Love the answer. Good stuff. I think we're good, Urs. Hey, thanks so much. We'll send you a quick cut before we roll it, but hopefully we're going to roll it tomorrow, just because get a little hype for the auction and get people excited.
Well, thank you for taking the time and do everything on such short notice. It's good. It's exciting. The whole thing is exciting. That's what it is.
I completely think so. I spend so much time on my day now on this whole NFT. My daughter is doing a thesis. She's a master's in anthropology student at USC Film School. and she was an anthropologist. She went to Princeton, and she's doing it on NFTs and trying to understand, like, how do we think about value? And it's interesting. So my whole family is plunged into this.
I thought recently of, like, whenever I have all these conversations with people from the, the traditional art world, and they just don't understand. So I had a friend over yesterday, in his early 60s, a famous curator, came, and I tried to explain the project before. He didn't listen. Then my daughter comes out, 11, 12, and she was talking about some gems she just bought in some game, and she traded that in for something else. And she was so excited about it all. And then all of a sudden, my friend understood. It's like,
yeah.
Everything I tried to explain, the kids don't care about. They care about the values in the game. And the same, you remember Fort Knox, and I always, that James Bond, when he had the Fort Knox and they tried to steal all the gold. And the idea, like, there is all this gold in this building, so that's why your dollar is worth something, because we have a building full of metal. I mean, it's a crazy story, but it makes no sense.
It's insanity, yeah. No, I have been selling the Bitcoin story, and I always say, this is a true story, true fact. You can take all the gold in the history of the world that's ever been mined, and it fits in a 55-foot cube, 19 meter cube, 19 by 19 by 19. And I was like, if that was a sculpture and we put it in the middle Central Park, it wouldn't even be that big, right? It's like 2 times my room, and it's worth $10 trillion. That's just insanity, right?
Yeah.
And so value is just what we say it is. And you can instill value in my little, Star Wars guy here, or gold, or a Bitcoin, or an NFT. And so that this idea that we're changing how we think about value is pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, how much is the material in a Picasso painting worth?
Yeah, $7.82.
Exactly,
Yeah. Awesome. Well, listen, and you're a New Yorker?
I was until a year ago. Now I'm out here in LA since a year. I don't know.
Got you in LA. Well, if you're up for it, I might. If you're up for it, I might have my see if you could give my daughter 15 minutes of an interview for her movie.
Oh, sure,
on
yeah,
NFTs, because that would be awesome.
There are a lot of interesting questions there. I ask because it's part of what I meant earlier. Like, how do you ensure that it will stay?
Yes.
Like, there are actually really big questions, and we deal for a longer time with digital archiving now, and which was a really big problem. Like, how do you we digitized everything, and how do you store that?
Right. The wonderful thing is, I actually fundamentally believe that some of these blockchains, the Ethereum blockchain in particular, will last forever. And so when there's a technical question, you're going to issue an NFT, and the key is going to go to the blockchain, but will all the bytes, all the code that creates the NFT live there, or live in a separate database? Will the blockchain just give you access to that database? Well, then it's not as secure. Or will it live on the blockchain? When it lives on the blockchain, the data is secured by every different node out there. The database is the same. And so if you have 1,000 nodes or 10,000 nodes or 20,000 nodes, you're really guaranteed that stuff never dies. And so this is really wonky technical stuff, but it becomes important as we put more and more value on these blockchains, that we're putting them on the right blockchains, and that they're distributed enough that someone just can't control them. Anyway, that's probably more information.
I mean, we looked into that. The problem I face is, if I have hundreds of terabytes of data.
Yeah, right now the blockchains aren't fast enough to process that data. And so right now the solution is you get a key to the blockchain into your database with the hundreds of terabytes of data. In the future, these blockchains are going to be like lightning. The future being 3, 4, 5, 6 years away.
Yeah, I mean, makes only sense. I mean, look, when you buy now a car, from somebody. What the paperwork? It's crazy, you know, all the things you need. Or a house is even worse. I mean, you have a stack of paper to sign for what?
We did a quick addendum to a contract. We guaranteed something, and they literally sent me a DocuSign of 99 pages. I was like, that's the addendum?
Yeah.
Insanity. All right. Hey, wonderful meeting you. Can't wait to see the auction on Sunday. I'll be a bidder, and we'll go from there. Take care.
See you somewhere. You too. Bye-bye.
Yep.
Thank you.